We'll talk about what are these various areas of valuable learning within the lead generation space, right? So there's intent signals. And by the way, these are topics that I felt were interesting and relevant. So I've not covered everything about lead generation because it's anyway a broad topic. But some of the things that I felt are not really included in the go-to lead generation material, right? You usually see lead generation on some sort of an article, in some sort of a video where they typically talk about the lead generation process, where you approach a prospect and what happens during that process. But I wanted to also highlight a few interesting things, some nuances in your approach that you can apply immediately after this call. So I felt there could be some practical tips that I could include in these slides as well. So I've included intent signals, lead magnets, lead gen approaches, lead qualification and scoring. And more importantly, this is, while I understand a lot of you are sales professionals, this also goes beyond the typical standard rule book of selling. It also delves into the marketing space. And in 2023, I think any sales professional needs to have a lot of marketing skills as well, right? Because a lot of selling is happening on social media through these platforms, right? So it's important to be able to leverage these tools and be able to highlight visibility of your brand, of your product. So this will be a combination of sales skills, some marketing skills, and obviously lead generation is a collaborative effort for both these sides. All right. So we have certain approaches listed here, and I'll obviously take them one-on-one. We all understand what's inbound lead generation, right? Where effectively what we're trying to do is we're trying to create some content, create some presence, which will drive potential customers towards your product or towards your brand, right? Lead ultimately is a potential customer, right? That's the simplest definition of what a lead is. So when you're trying to attract leads, you're trying to also drive leads to your landing page, to your platform, to your pricing page, or whatever is the call to action. You're trying to do that in multiple ways, and you're trying to leverage the power of performance marketing, content marketing, SEO, lead magnets. And lead magnets is a separate topic that I wanted to also highlight. So we'll cover a lot of that as well. But just quickly touching upon these topics. So anything that can bring leads to you instead of you going out and doing an outreach. So you're essentially creating a pull strategy with inbound lead generation. Performance marketing are all of these ads that you see on Facebook, on Instagram, on Google, on LinkedIn, right? So there's a lot of paid marketing that forms performance marketing, right? So you're leveraging these multiple platforms, their distribution, and you're trying to drive leads to your platform. Content marketing is where you're creating a lot of interesting content in the form of video content, in the form of blogs, in the form of just tweets or posts that you're putting out on LinkedIn or Twitter or on other platforms, which also have a slight plug-in about your brand. Right? While you're posting, let's say, about ChatGPT, and if you're running an AI business, you're also subtly saying, hey, I have an AI app that can also do this. While you're interested in ChatGPT, this is another thing that could be of relevance to you. And so you're driving action towards your platform. SEO, we all know you want to rank somewhere on the top whenever somebody's searching for keywords which could be relevant for your business or for your space and industry. Lead magnets, like I said, I have an entire slide dedicated to that. So we'll park this for now. So that obviously is an overview of inbound lead generation. There's obviously so many other aspects of it. And within these broad topics, there's so many nuances and so many sub points as well. Outbound, as the name implies, you're doing an outreach. You're either cold calling, you're sending emails, you have a set of leads that you've identified or a set of leads that you want to qualify. So you're doing a lot of outbound outreach through these cold calls, through these emails, or you're even doing it on socials. So for example, on LinkedIn, you already know that these 50 people could be very relevant for your business. So you're reaching out to them in the form of maybe direct messages, or you're putting out a post which is about their brand and talking about how your product could add value. There's a lot of interesting stuff that's happening in the world of partnerships and referrals. where, for example, you could partner with supplementary products. So you have a certain product, there is another product that complements your product strategy or go-to-market strategy, and you collaborate and you do a combined campaign that drives leads to both your businesses. An example of that could be that there could be a marketplace of tools, right? So, for example, if you're aware of Zapier, now Zapier does a lot of automation. Or, for example, Salesforce has an app marketplace, a tool marketplace. So you could collaborate with Salesforce and also plug in your app or your tool into their marketplace. So anybody who's using Salesforce could get access to a tool that you have, which could be valuable for them while they're using Salesforce or any other CRM, right? So there are a bunch of strategies around partnerships. You could also get into a partnership or collaboration where you could do two-side referrals. So there could be, for example, there could be a recruitment platform, right? A recruitment platform has job seekers. Job seeker could also be relevant for a learning program, right? So you could collaborate with a learning provider and say, hey, we have job seekers who could be relevant for your learning programs. And you might have candidates who've already gone through a learning program, could be relevant job seekers for us, right? So for example, if you're doing a digital marketing course, once you're done doing the digital marketing course, your natural next step is to find a relevant, exciting opportunity, a job, right? So job portal or a recruitment platform could be valuable in that sense. So these are some examples of how you could approach lead generation. These are broad categories that I felt. So this essentially forms the basics of going about lead generation, right? And I want to also quickly touch upon events and conferences. Now, there's a lot of action from a sales perspective, from a marketing perspective that happens on during these events and conferences. For example, I come from a space and I've been in that space for about a couple of years now, which is the blockchain, the Web3 space, where there are a lot of developer conferences, where there are a lot of hackathons which happen, or even community events that happen, right? So people from different companies are there, and there could be a lot of areas of possible synergy or collaboration that you could explore during these events and conferences. And you could have your own booth, you could have some sort of a sponsorship presence, and there could be certain campaigns that you can do during these events that could drive a lot of leads and capture a lot of leads. So I wanted to set the context of this presentation with the basics in place, right? So yeah, that's, like I said, the fundamentals of lead generation that I wanted to start with. So this is one of my favorite topics within lead generation, right? Imagine you're about to sell a product or you're looking for leads and you get to know that, somebody who matches your customer profile is also searching for a solution like yours and is desperately in the need of buying a solution like yours. Imagine if you get to know that data, right? For example, if you're, let's say, if you're selling a car or you're a car salesman and you get to know that somebody within your region or within the radius of your showroom has this strong intent of buying a car within this month, and they match your customer profile, you have the same type of cars that they're looking for. So that would be extremely valuable data for you, correct? That cuts short the entire sales cycle of figuring out, of finding people, of knowing who's interested, who's not, by just talking to them or sending them emails. That's a very long cycle in most cases. But if you get to know that somebody's already interested in buying a product like yours, like I was saying, that there is a lot of value in this kind of data. And this is what I want to talk about in this slide, where how do you understand signals, which are buying intent signals? There could be direct signals, there could be indirect signals. For example, in my most recent experience, we find a lot of leads on Twitter where people are posting about or tweeting about their requirements. For example, if you're selling to developers, software developers, for example, if you're talking about software developers or software engineering heads or CTOs, Now, they are also on Twitter, they're also on these developer platforms and forums and community forums and groups where they talk about what are they looking for, and they ask for recommendations because that's a community driven thing, right? If I'm a CTO of a certain company and I'm part of a group where there are 100 other CTOs, or if I'm a software engineer and I'm part of a company that is looking for a tool, let's say looking for some sort of a data solution or some sort of an API solution. Again, I'm getting into software terms, but the idea is that if you're part of a group where you could rely on their opinion, you will put out a social post. And like I said, in my most recent experience, we find a lot of leads on Twitter where people are saying, hey, we are looking for an API solution for this need. Any recommendations? Hey, we are struggling with this type of API. Do you have any other alternatives that you use? They put out tweets, they put out those comments and posts on social media. And it's important to capture that because that's an extremely direct intent to buy. And by the way, this is Twitter and social, these forums and groups, but there's a lot of action that's happening on LinkedIn. If you're, for example, if you have a job portal or a recruitment solution, again, I'm talking about some of my experience, there's a lot of activity that happens from the recruiter's side or the HR head side on LinkedIn. They post about the jobs that they have, about the kind of urgency of closing out certain positions. And if you have a relevant solution for them, you could engage with that person. And it's most likely that they would be happy to talk to you because they already have a buying intent. So you're helping them in that process. You're not a salesperson bothering them. You're now all of a sudden helping them. Imagine that equation, right? So it's important to track social posts. And a practical tip around that is there are multiple keyword alerts, right? Again, based on the industry you're in, based on the product you're selling, you could have certain keywords. If somebody, for example, is searching for, hey, any recommendation for a job portal, hey, any recommendation for an insurance policy or an insurance platform, right? Whatever is the domain or product that you're in, you can do keyword alerts through automation tools. We're obviously living in the age of AI tools and automation tools. So leverage that, right? So you could apply keyword alerts where the moment somebody tweets about a topic of interest for you or posts it on LinkedIn or mentions it on Instagram or Facebook or wherever your audience is, you will get an alert, maybe directly to your WhatsApp or to your Telegram group chat. So the moment you understand there's somebody looking for a product like yours, you could reach out to them, right? And the sooner you reach out to them, the higher likely it would be that you'll get into a great conversation and possibly also get them onboarded as a customer. So that's a direct intent. That's something that I feel everyone who's trying to generate leads should track, which is in buying intent signals. The second point here I've mentioned is content engagement. Now, your company could have a website, could have a lot of marketing material that they're putting out. Or you could also have, for example, your pricing plan somewhere online, or you could have your entire deck, sales deck online. And the moment you're able to see that a potential customer or a prospect is engaging with your content, that's very high value signal. If somebody is constantly, for example, if I sent an email to a prospect, and there are obviously email tracking tools which tell you somebody opened your email how many times. Let's say I sent a pricing plan or I sent a deck to somebody and they opened it multiple times in the last few days. That could be a high priority prospect for me. So I will obviously engage or try to engage with that prospect and prioritize their account over some of the other leads, right? Because there's a clear intent, which is why they're opening your deck multiple times, because possibly they're having an internal discussion about your deck, about your pricing within their company and team. And then obviously these are broad topics, so there could be multiple things that fall within these topics, some of which we'll cover in the next few slides as well. There's obviously inbound leads. We all know that somebody reaches out to you. So they find a way to get to you and say, we're looking for a solution like this, right? So can you offer, or can you give us more details about your features? Can you give us more details about the pricing plans? And that's a direct inbound lead, which is again direct intent. And we all know that. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on inbound leads that come to you through your channels, right? But there are also certain indirect leads. Not everybody's posting here, I need this solution. All salespeople approach me now. Most people don't do that. Again, for the fear of maybe getting overwhelmed with a lot of sales people approaching them. So how do you then figure out if they're really interested or they're looking to buy a solution like this? You then track indirect signals where they're not explicitly mentioning that they're looking for a solution like this, but they have there are a lot of signals that you can track. I'll talk about the first one. Now, funding news is usually directly proportional to a company going into expansion mode. And expansion mode means that they will be hiring a lot of people, they'll be acquiring a lot of buying a lot of tools and subscriptions. So great for salespeople. Anytime a company raises a funding round, it's most likely that they'll have money to spend or deploy on tools, on subscriptions, on hiring more people and growing and expanding their business. There could also be other expansion signals or growth signals that you could track, right? Are they aggressively hiring, which is the third point I've mentioned here? Like, for example, if you have a marketing automation tool that you're selling, and that a company is aggressively hiring a lot of marketing people, or let's say if they're hiring, or if they've recently hired a chief of marketing in a company, usually a chief marketing officer joining a company means that they will revisit the entire marketing strategy. Correct? So if somebody at a senior level joins a team, it's most likely that they'll revisit the entire strategy of that team, of that vertical, and it's very likely that they'll be open to exploring or getting new solutions. So hiring also reveals a lot of interesting information. It's almost decoding a secret code, right? So through these indirect signals, you could get a sense of who would be the most high priority leads for your business. Like for example, we used to every morning before reaching out to prospects, we used to look at funding news. We used to understand which companies raised around, which startups raised around, which companies aggressively hiring. And we were obviously part of a recruitment business. So that was also a direct signal in some way. But even if you're not selling a recruitment solution, hiring, expansion, funding is a great positive signal for you to understand if you should approach a particular company, a particular person. There could also be a lot of existing customers for your product in your company, right? So imagine if you sold to them, they're already happy using your product. They're almost like a brand evangelist. Now they've moved to a new company. That's again a great signal for you to now approach them. And because it again cuts down a lot of time, they already have context and they know about the advantages. They've used your product in the previous company. And the moment they move to the next, and great if they are in a decision maker role, then that's a positive signal, right? So I wanted to talk about these direct and indirect signals that you could leverage right after this call and spend time and try to automate some of this. Like I said, keyword alerts could be great, or just hiring news or funding news. There could be automation around that as well, that you could get alerts on funding news or somebody's hiring aggressively. Or there are also, by the way, now tools which track movement of people. So let's say Osama is your brand evangelist. If he's moved from one company to the next, you get an alert. And that gives you an opportunity to engage with him again and say, hey, Osama, you've used our product, you've found value. Please take us along in your new company. So again, one of my favorite topics, and this will get more nuanced as we move forward because there's a ton of information online. How do you leverage it? How do you take advantage of it? Will be a differentiating factor between a great salesperson and somebody who's trying to explore and try and figure things out and taking up a lot of time in that. So this is smart selling by understanding signals. All right, I spoke about lead magnets being part of the inbound lead generation process. And predominantly, this is a marketing team's job. But at the same time, it's always important to know how can you do more to drive more leads to your product and platform. Ebooks, if you have an ebook, you've created some sort of an infographic, some sort of an industry report. I'm sure you've also come across people writing on LinkedIn or posting on LinkedIn, hey, I have this detailed report about a particular industry. It's the most recent report. It has everything. But to get access to this, fill this form or give us your email. That's a lead magnet, right? A lot of people are interested in seeing that report. And for that, they'll provide you with their information, which could be useful for engaging with them. Because one, the report could be also very targeted, very relevant to your industry. So anybody interested in reading about it is potentially also a relevant prospect. There could be case studies about somebody using your product and finding value, and you could share that, which could again drive a lot of leads to you. Product trials work really well. If you offer something for free, that usually attracts a lot of relevant leads. And again, from my experience at IM Jobs, we had free jobs, we had companies that could access the platform for free. And we used to also, by the way, give free trials of our B2B recruiting solutions. So that would always give us a lot of leads. You could also be doing a lot of webinars and podcasts. Again, some of these things will take time. Once you establish some sort of thought leadership in your domain, that will act as a lead generation engine for you and drive a lot of leads accordingly. What if you're hosting an event, or you have a group, or you have some valuable content, be it video content or a library of resources, and you say, okay, if you want access to this, we'll give you exclusive access to all of this. For that, fill this form. And that's a lead generated for you. Because now they want access to that exclusive event. They want access to that exclusive premium content, or they want exclusive access to the library of resources. And through that, you obviously generate leads. Free tool. This is again one of my favorite things. Again, it's not something that a salesperson can create because it requires a bit of product knowledge, a bit of tech knowledge. But this is again an interesting thing to know, so that you could collaborate with the product and engineering teams to create maybe a free tool that could drive a lot of leads. I'll give you an example. We all have at some point of time, because taxation is a very complicated thing. We all don't know what is going to be my annual tax this year. So there are tools, and I've also used maybe ClearTax has a tool where you could just go to ClearTax and put in some information about your compensation, about investments that you've made, and they'll tell you what is the annual tax. And that tool is completely free. But through that tool, the company has generated probably tens of thousands of leads. Correct. And similarly, you could think of so many other examples where you're being offered a free mini tool, and that is the gateway to then getting access or being approached by a sales team to get access to the main product. But it's again one of my favorite ways of driving leads, because it's something that's out there that will constantly be driving leads because you're adding value through that free tool, right? For example, you go to these banking websites, or don't even go to the banking website, just Google search, how much should I SIP to get X percentage returns in 10 years? And you will see calculators by HDFC Bank or by say bank or by any other relevant banking player. The free tool will bring you in, and it'll ask for some details. Hey, how much do you want to invest per month? What is the percentage return you're expecting? And then what could be the ultimate lump sum amount that you'll generate through these investments? And that calculator will also drive a lot of people on their website will expose them to a lot of other relevant information. So these free tools work really well. Newsletters, pretty straightforward. You're offering something valuable every week or every month or whatever the frequency of the newsletter is. And through that value, you're keeping people hooked to your brand. Every week, they're reading up interesting stuff. Let's say I'm interested in AI. And if there's an AI newsletter, it will every week tell me the new tools that have come up because it's difficult to catch up with so many stuff that's happening. So it'll tell me the new tools which have come up. It will also slightly plug in some sort of a brand. It could be their own brand, their own product. It could be some sponsorship that they're doing, right? So newsletters could also drive a lot of leads. For example, during my role leading the Learn and Grow business, we used to try to drive a lot of leads of people who were interested in learning programs because they were already on IIM jobs. They were already looking for jobs. Let's say somebody is interested in becoming a full stack engineer. Now, there could be programs around that from Simply Learn or Upgrad. And we would plug in some of those programs which could be of value alongside valuable information for job seekers. There are also web forms. So if you go to a website, there are possibly some CTAs, some call to action, which will again drive a lot of leads. So the entire point, and to summarize this slide, there are a bunch of ways where you could create something valuable, which would drive leads automatically to you, right? Like I said, a lot of this is marketing domain, but there's no sales marketing borderline, right? It's not like a rule book or a scope of work that you have to be sticking to. As a sales professional in 2023, you need to know everything about how to bring customers, how to bring leads. It could be through marketing efforts, it could be through sales efforts, it could be through collaborative efforts. Two terms I think you might have heard about, which is MQL and SQL, marketing qualified lead and sales qualified lead. As the name implies, if there is a lead which has been qualified by the marketing team based on various parameters and is then moved to the sales team, and they would have obviously generated that lead through a lot of these marketing efforts on the website, through content marketing, through performance marketing, paid marketing. And they've generated a bunch of leads and they've qualified those leads and then moved them to the sales team. Now the sales team would engage with these leads through demos, through calls, through emails, direct conversations, and then also further qualify those leads and move them to opportunity zone. And obviously, once they're in the opportunity zone, there's a lot more effort going into those leads with respect to engaging with multiple decision makers or with multiple POCs, sharing relevant content, valuable content, nurturing those leads, and so on. So the typical funnel looks like this. The top of the funnel, the marketing team is driving a lot of those leads. But having said that, this is, by the way, a structure of maybe a startup or a company that has a very sophisticated structure. There could be startups, there could be companies which don't have such a sophisticated setup in place. It's not like there will be a lot of marketing people who will be driving leads and the sales team can work on leads. There could be a lot of cases where you do all of this. So it's important to know the process, to know the funnel. So the prospect or the visitor or somebody that you engaged with, obviously you could call it a cold prospect, you understand and score those leads. Do they fit your criteria? And you could have your ideal customer profile. Every company, every product should have their ideal customer profile persona created, right? This acts as a great guide for you to know who matches your criteria. If you're selling a recruiting solution to talent acquisition heads or HR heads, you should know what is the title or what are the multiple titles who could be relevant. You should know what are the types of companies who would be relevant. Not every company would be relevant. For example, again, IIM Jobs experience, we didn't approach every company because we knew we operate in a premium segment. There are certain companies who would want to hire talent from top B schools or people who are at mid-senior level. So we would always qualify and score leads accordingly, right? and then also understand some of the other information related to, say, location or what's been their behavior as well. So we'll come to the lead scoring part, but just sticking to the funnel. So you get the lead, you identify if they match your requirements, then the marketing team further qualifies and passes it on to the sales team. And the sales team, like I said, does the demonstrations, the calls, sharing decks, talking about the product in specific details, and moves them further down the funnel, and they ultimately hopefully become your customer. So that's MQL and SQL and the funnel, right? So that's typically the qualification funnel, but like I said, every company could have a very different structure and size of team and types of teams. So this could be further expanded, or it could be just one person doing all of this, right? Moving on to lead score, like I pointed out, if you have an ideal customer profile, it acts as a guide to tell you that this prospect matches your criteria by 80%, or this prospect doesn't match your criteria at all, probably just 20% fitment. This prospect is 100% perfect match. And how do you know that? Like I said, through job titles, through demographics, through region, location. Let's say if you're selling a product which is confined to just India or to just a particular state. Now, if you get a lead from US or from a different part of the world, it might not be high priority, right? So you score them accordingly, and you're taking a combination of factors, which means that your ultimate lead score has already factored in multiple things. So it has captured lead demographics, and it should also capture lead behavior, which is another important point, which is also overlapping with the intent signal. What if your lead has, in the last 3 days, has opened your sales deck multiple times? Now that is a positive signal. So they get additional points for that. What if in the last 1 week, your prospect has emailed you 6 times about some sort of a query, some sort of a request? That's again a positive signal. So, the lead score goes up. But what if somebody has not been doing that for the last couple of months or 3 months? Now that is a negative lead behavior. So I'm not saying you will reject the lead, but you will just score them accordingly. So I've covered qualification and scoring through these two images and graphical representations. And just to again do a quick recap of what we've spoken about, we've talked about lead magnets, qualification scoring, buying signals, and approaches. So there is an advanced search option on Twitter. The advanced search, you can mention what are the keywords that should be there in the tweet. For example, if you're selling, let's say, a marketing automation tool, now you could put in certain keywords like marketing automation or just automation and suggestions, recommendations, question mark, right? So you could put in all of those keywords, and there is obviously an option to include all such keywords, or maybe do an either this keyword or that keyword or this keyword. And you can also put a timeline that I want to see tweets which have these keywords in the last, say, 6 months, in the last 3 months. So you could leverage the advanced search feature on Twitter to be able to find relevant leads like you're doing on LinkedIn, which is again a great platform for identifying intent of buyers. So brand evangelist is somebody who has used your product and has found a lot of value. They're very happy. So think of them as a happy customer, but as a happy customer, they're also promoting your brand within their network. Let's say there's an HR leader who's bought a subscription to our recruiting solution, and they're very happy. They've used it, their team has used it, found a lot of value. Now they will share this within their network as well, right? So then they become a brand evangelist. So a happy customer who's also promoting your brand is a simple definition of a brand evangelist. And somebody who's supporting your brand because they found value, they've used it, and if they move to another company, that gives you an opportunity to also open or get access to that account. I think customer retention is super important, right? If you want to grow your business, you want customers to stick with you, to give you more business, upsell, cross sell, and all of that. One thing that worked really well for us when we were trying to retain customers or get more business out of them was understanding what is the job to be done for them. Just understand things from their perspective. By using your tool or your solution or your product, what is their goal, right? If you're offering, let's say, a white label software solution, what is the ultimate goal that they have? Because a white label software solution is usually used when they want to have their own software, which has to be used by another set of customers, correct? So understand what is their goal, what is success for them, and regularly just have those conversations of how can you help them achieve their goals. For example, we were doing, like I said, we used to also drive some relevant leads to learning providers, to learning programs. And one important thing that helped us retain the business, what we did was we understood what is it that they are trying to achieve through getting access to our platform, which was, for example, they told us we want 500 leads every month, which should give us, let's say, 20% people buying our learning program. Right? When we understood what is success for them or what is the goal for them, then we accordingly had conversations of solutions that we can do to achieve that. Sometimes the answers are just in conversations and information that you can get from your prospect or from your customer. Right? So my advice would be to listen to your customer, understand what is their goal, what is the job to be done for them. And once you understand that is when you can tailor your solution to their needs. That's again the broad advice. Practical tips and what you can do maybe with that particular customer is, again, just have maybe, if not weekly, maybe have now, depending on the subscription duration. Like, for example, if it's an annual subscription or if it's a one-time thing, you'll have to explore how often you should have a conversation with a decision maker. Like, for example, we had a job portal, right, where the success for a recruiter was how many people can they hire through the job portal. So our energies and our efforts were directed in the direction that how do we help this recruiter at IBM hire 10 people in the next 2 months within their team through our platform, which was IMJobs and highrise.com. So all of our efforts of our customer success team were directed towards that. We used to share profiles of candidates who could be relevant. We used to do demos with multiple team members in the recruitment team so that they will start using the platform once they see the demonstration and they get familiar with the product and how it works. So just understanding what is their success can guide you. How do you approach solution for them? And once you solve something larger for your customer, business will happen. I think that's the angle of approach you should take instead of thinking, how do I increase business? Because then it will be very self-centered. I think you will have to shift the center to the customer, understand what is success for them, and that will drive business automatically. And they will come back and say, hey, give us more solutions, or we are also interested in, buying more of what you have, right? Imagine in the last 3 months, how many times you've received a cold call and how many times have you actually ended up buying something through that cold call. It's very unlikely that people would have actually bought something just from a cold call. The core principle of buying and selling is trust, right? A cold call lacks trust, right? Because if I don't know who's talking to me, if I don't know anything about them, I might never be interested in pursuing that conversation further. It becomes important to create some sort of trust. And you could do that even if, let's say, cold call is your core business or core approach in your company. You could share some interesting information with your leads, with your prospects, even before you reach out to them, so that they have some context. If, for example, called me up, but I've already seen a couple of emails by Nitesh, or maybe seen a few posts on LinkedIn by Nitesh, now I have a face or some context to the product and to the brand. Now there's some trust. I'm not saying trust is complete and I would still pursue it, but at least it's better than just out of the blue getting a call from somebody and I have no idea. Even if I'm interested in the product, the trust deficit will lead to this not moving forward, right? Or I might want to research more about the brand. So in that sense, I think even salespeople need to have a lot of these social media posting skills, a lot of these marketing skills, and which were traditionally, conventionally known to be marketing skills. I don't just look at these things as marketing teams own these type of activities and sales team own these type of activities. As a sales professional, you should know everything about acquiring a customer, right? And you have to adopt that approach. There could be cases where you're part of a team where maybe it's just you, right? So you need to have an understanding of all of these tools and approaches so that you can drive leads. And the pull approach is my favorite, because as a buyer, I would appreciate if I see more content before I talk to somebody. Instead of thinking about it in that way, that whether marketing teams will get more budgets or sales team will get more budgets, I like to think of it this way, that sales teams will not just be doing calling and emailing. They will be doing a lot more. So the sales team will become more empowered through these tools, because one, salespeople have so many amazing qualities which are required to bring a customer on board, right? So with those skills of just being disciplined, being determined, being able to take rejections and handle objections, so many of those skills that salespeople have, if they get also empowered with tools and with access to platforms where they can post things, where they can create some sort of a brand equity or a brand name, they will obviously be more successful. And as a result, the sales team or the sales function will move in the direction where it will outgrow the conventional definition of what sales is, right? So they will start. I'm already seeing that, at least in the blockchain space, in the internet space, I'm already seeing a lot of salespeople. I'm sure you would have noticed as well. They're actively posting, they're actively creating their own personal brands, or they're creating more awareness about their products and brands in a non-salesy way. And that is giving them a lot of leads. So it's unintuitive in that sense, where you're not selling, but you're getting more sales. So that is where I see the future heading. So from a budget perspective, I see budget allocation again towards what works. If I'm the founder of a startup and I have a salesperson who can bring me a lot of customers, I don't care how they did that. Was it through emails? Was it through phone calls? Was it through social media? Was it through any of these lead magnets? I will allocate more budget to them. As a company, I will allocate more budget to them. So I think that's where I see the trend moving, where people graduate to another higher level of understanding of how to sell. And yeah, but again, I also agree with your thought process that there will be a lot of focus on marketing approaches to drive sales as well. So there are a bunch of tools. So when we used to do lead scoring, we were typically relying on what was available publicly on LinkedIn. So for example, if we wanted to understand if a certain organization has, let's say, X number of open positions. Let's say there's a startup in Bangalore that has 10 active positions, and it's a small startup which has probably 30 employees. So effectively they're growing by a significant percentage. So they're actively hiring. So that was a good signal for us to understand. And we used to score leads accordingly, right? We used to look at how many employees do they have? Do they have employees from premium B schools or who are working at mid-senior level from very well-known brands? Then automatically they used to score higher. And we used to leverage LinkedIn. For funding news, we used to leverage, obviously, Google Alerts. Crunchbase has some information on funding. Currently in our organization, we're relying mostly on Twitter. But I think there are a bunch of tools, and obviously you can quickly do a search and it'll give you a lot of relevant stuff. You could also go to Product Hunt, which has all of these interesting, innovative tools which keep coming up, and you could leverage that. I think there's outreach, there's a bunch of sales automation tools which can tell you if your deck was opened, and you could either, by the way, also create a link on, let's say, pitch.com, or even Google Slides, like you said, might have some of those features where if somebody's opening your deck or opening your pricing plan, you get alerts, and how many times, how much time are they spending. So again, some of these tools, I think you'll have to maybe do a quick Google search and you'll be able to see, I think on the first page you'll see 10
Okay.
15 such tools. Yeah.